Hello, my drawing and sketching students. Today's lesson is about using colored pencils and how to draw an apple. Or maybe you've got a nasty pear like I do sitting around. Ooh, look at that nasty thing. Oh, there's a fly on it. Oh, that's gross. All right, well, I had this thing in the bottom of my backpack and I got all beat up and I don't think I'm gonna even eat it now. Ugh. But the good news is, as an artist, this is awesome. I don't want a pear that looks perfect. I want one with imperfections. So when you go hunting for your apple or pear or tomato, zucchini, whatever it is that you plan to draw, and hopefully you've got some fruit or veggie at home. If you don't, go get something. You're not eating healthy enough. So I want you to find something that's got imperfections. Maybe it's got stripes on it, or different colors, or bruises, or spots, or wormholes. That's going to be much more interesting than if you just find the most perfect green or red apple like Kroger, okay? So you do have to find that. I guess as a secondary option, you could find a really good picture of one, but that'd be really cool to have the apple in front of you, be able to draw it and then take a bite out of it. Plus I want you to draw one from two different views. So I'm hoping that you'll either have two apples, maybe one's on its side and one's standing up, or you draw the apple and then cut it in half and draw it as it's opened up. But well, anyway, let me show you the big picture idea here today. Your target is to learn how to use colored pencils, most importantly. That's why we're doing this, so that you can learn how to layer with them and blend them and use multiple colors. And I should include, and to burnish them. We'll talk about burnishing in a minute. But your goal is to try to create a realistic looking apple, not one like this. Okay, if I had asked you just to, hey, draw me an apple, you might envision an apple and it would be outlined and it might have a fake highlight and your stereotypical leaf coming off of it. Maybe you would color it solid red. No, that's like clip art. I want you to like really look at an apple. Okay, I want you to look at its stripes and its spots and its imperfections, its highlights, its cast shadows, and really try your best to draw an apple. So that's for 50 points, you're gonna be drawing me an apple or a pear or plum or whatever from two different views for full 50 points. But before we get to that, let's talk colored pencils. There's all different types. If you got your colored pencils from me, then you got a set of 12 Crayola colored pencils, and these will work just fine. They're not artist quality. You know, an artist wouldn't use these because these fade over time. What you have here is something I got from Kroger for 79 cents. So, you know, Kroger's got to make some money. So Crayola's probably making, 35 cents. Minus the packaging, like maybe they're making 3 cents a pencil. So you got to realize, if you've got a pencil like this and it's worth 3 cents, it's pretty cheap. They're made with dyes, whereas a good quality colored pencil is made with pigment, which is ground up stuff from the earth, right? So ground up seashells and rocks and minerals and, gosh, they use seeds and plant materials. So you've got this ground up, like say blue powder, and then they mix it with wax, and then you've got a wax colored pencil. But that pigment, 100 years from now will still look pretty good. It might fade a little bit, but not like dyes. Dyes are chemically manufactured colors that just become, over time, they become foxed. We say foxed, we mean sun bleached. Okay, so that's not good. Now, as a kind of a base or starting point, if you're an artist, you want some of these Prismacolor colored pencils. So these are great. You get lots and lots of different colors, and there's more colors. Oh, I'm gonna drop them out. There's more colors behind. This is a set of 150. And if you're a colored pencil artist, the more colors, the better, because you're not a painter, right? Like you can't mix an exact color, so you try to get all the colors. I know myself, I've got 500 different colored pencils at home, so that when I want just the right color, I can get that. And when it runs out, I order that same colored pencil again to replace it in my set. Now, again, if you were in my classroom, I would give you Prismacolor colored pencils, and you'd have a lot more flavors, but we're kind of limited. So I'll show you how to use your colored pencils, your Crayola ones, and those will be just fine. But if you do have a little extra money, even buying a cheap set of Rose Art or Prang or some other cheap color, just so you have lots of different colors would be fine. But again, just nothing, you get what you pay for. Myself, I like Faber-Castell. That's a brand. They're better, well, in my opinion, they're better than Prismacolor, because Prismacolor as a wax-based, uh, you know, binder that holds the pigment together. And they blend okay, but the Faber-Castell is an oil base. So it's really smooth. They're like butter. So when you blend, they're like the most expensive, but that's me being an art snob and flexing on you a little bit. There are other types too. Like you can get watercolor colored pencils. So you draw with these just like colored pencils, and then you can activate them with like a watercolor, with a paintbrush, and you can paint with them. So it's kind of like drawing meets painting. But those are kind of pricey. These are made by a company called Derwent. So you can get some of those if you like, Derwent watercolors. Prismacolor also makes what they call very thin. They are literally very thin. As opposed to a regular, Prismacolor colored pencil, you can see how thick the end is on that. These are much thinner, okay? So the beauty of that is, well, it's just a harder wax. And you can always tell because these have a hexagon shape as opposed to the perfectly round shape. So if you're drawing fine details, you want your pencil point to hold up. Like if you're doing eyelashes or eyebrows, then you want a very thin because you don't have to sharpen it as much. Speaking of sharpening, one more thing you should know about colored pencils. This is where you need a sharpener. I like to use a handheld sharpener to sharpen these because if you put colored pencil in an electric sharpener, which I'll do right now, okay, it works, but the problem is there's gears that are sharpening this pencil inside your colored pencil or inside your pencil sharpener. And those gears are going to get gummed with wax. Maybe not right away, but if you were a colored pencil artist and you kept putting your colored pencil in that pencil sharpener over and over again, and then you might be wondering, like, why is my pencil sharpener going, roar, 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 roar? It's not working. That's why. So I just don't use mine. I only use mine with graphite because actually graphite's a lubricant that keeps that thing running and humming forever. So if you've gone through an electric pencil sharpener like mine, and I pay 80 bucks for one, I'm going to use one of these. So sharpen it by hand. Lastly, colored pencil can erase. If you're using it lightly, if you press really hard and you've really pushed the color into the paper, it'll still erase, but it's going to stain your paper. So just FYI, if you draw lightly, you can erase it. All right, so let's talk about what these things can do. First of all, I'm going to talk about burnishing, and that's this. Let me bring up my document camera here. Here we go. All right, so all paper has what's called tooth. Like if you could look at this paper under a microscope, you would see that it's got some hills and valleys because paper is made out of little pieces of pulp and fibers, made from trees, right? But they grind that fiber up and they bleach it so you get a nice white pressed piece of paper. But even this fairly smooth typing paper does have a little bit of tooth. You can see if I drag this colored pencil over the paper, there's some white speckles where the colored pencil doesn't go. And that's because what happens is your colored pencil is sitting on these tops and all these high parts, but it's not going down into the valleys. To get it to go into the valleys, you're going to have to press harder. And really what you're doing is you're flattening this paper to, so check this out. If I press harder, there's still some speckles in there. I could even press harder still and really burnish. Yes, really make it burnished down into the paper, into the valleys. So that's the idea of burnishing, and that's how most colored pencil artists like to work. They like to fully, press the pigment into the paper. These things can layer, but notice this. Let's use a yellow on top of this purple and see what happens. Yellow on top of, ooh, not really doing very much. Of course, if you have yellow first, and then you put purple on top, oh yeah, no problem. So what I'm trying to show with this little experiment is that obviously dark colors will easily go on top of light colors. Light colors not so easily go on top of dark colors. So what am I saying? Maybe you want to start with light colors first? Yes, that's the way to go. Because these are, if you're using dark colors, you're going to kind of commit. I'll show you how an eraser will work with this. Yeah, it's stained. I mean, it's kind of erasing, so you can kind of fix mistakes, but it's kind of stained. Now, you might notice that most of the purple came off of this. That's because I had a waxy layer down underneath. And that second layer was just sitting on top of the wax because these colored pencils can layer, okay? You can layer them on top of one another. So those are just some colored pencil basics. What I'd like to show you now is maybe how to draw an apple. I don't have an apple in front of me per se. I'll draw my pear in a second. But just, you know, how would you tackle drawing an apple? Well, you might start with basic round shape. Notice how I'm starting very lightly. And maybe it's not perfectly round. Maybe it's more something like this. So you can alter the shape a little bit. This is a part a lot of people have trouble with, is making this little, you know, dimple up here where the stem might come out. But you could kind of draw like an oval, and maybe coming out of that, you've got a little stem coming out. Okay, so that's something you could do. You could make this darker down in here because it kind of does go down, but watch as I adjust my pressure and make it lighter up in here. That can kind of create the illusion that there's depth, that it goes down in there. And now a lot of apples have little stripes or things, but I'm not just making stripes like I'm hatching or cross hatching, like shading. Watch as I use these stripes to kind of create the contours of the apple. So I can, maybe they go straight down here, but watch as I have them come right out of here like they're coming out and they curve. And even back here, they might do that too. So sometimes looking at the, if you have some, the stripes that are on your apple can help really convey the idea that that's three-dimensional and that it's got some form. All right. So I'm drawing a blue apple. That's kind of silly. We'll get into the appropriate colors in just a couple minutes. But I really wanted to give you just a head up. And don't forget that you might have a cast shadow on there, and that your shadow, of course, would be more intense and darker as you get closer to the object itself. Okay, so this could use a lot more work. I can make this darker, and I could start to shade a bit more. And like a color, like a regular pencil, you can use the sides of these and, you know, get a little more bang for your buck and work quicker if you'd like. Probably leave a little highlight over here on this edge so it looks shiny. Sometimes I like to draw with just an unnatural color when I'm sketching. I find it fun to make things odd colors. Now maybe you've cut your apple in half, or let's draw one from the side first of all. Maybe your apple has toppled over and you've got something like this. And you see this little round part over here. So that's another way to do it. You can see when I draw, I often make a few lines before I find the right one. I think of myself as more of a sculptor when I draw. So I might not get it right on the first line. I was always jealous of people that could just make the perfect apple the first time. You know, I like to kind of carve mine until it feels right. Let's put a little leaf on here, why not? And a couple bruises and imperfections. There we go, we've got one from the side. Now maybe you cut your apple. If you cut your apple in half, you might end up with something like this, where you see the top and you see the bottom. Notice how I did that there? Or it might even come in a little bit and come back out. That's something you might see. You might see some seeds in here, or maybe a little stem that's coming out of here. So that's one more way to tackle just a part of an apple. Again, I'm doing these rather quickly. I want you to take a lot more time. I'm just trying to show how to maybe capture the basic form of your apple. You might have one that's upside down like this. So it's essentially, you know, a round apple, but you're just seeing this part of it. So you might go like this and draw your apple, or maybe it comes in a little bit here. It's got a little dimple that goes in, and maybe it's got part of the stem still hanging on. So you might see an apple that looks something like this. Never mind this part on the bottom. We could just, because I did that lightly, I should be able to erase that right off of there, hopefully, for the most part. There we go. Yeah, put a little shadow coming off of this. All right, I'll do a little cross hatching here. So really, I'm just trying to show you some different ways to to draw an apple. There's lots of different ways, but I'd like you to try it at least in two different views, okay? The last thing I want to talk about is color. You know, just for a pear like this, ooh, this nasty thing, you're gonna need a lot of colors. Oh, that thing is just nasty. Ugh. All right, let me just put that right there. Holy cow. All right, so I'm gonna use what you've got to try to capture those colors. So the first thing I would do is just take out the colors I need. For example, got all these 12 colors here. I don't think I'm gonna need blue or purple or this indigo. I need white, maybe. Definitely gonna need the greens. Let's get these out of the way. Am I gonna need reds? Well, I don't know. I kind of like this warm red here. I can see a little bit of warm colors in there. You might not be able to see underneath this camera, but this stem here, oh my gosh, this is nasty. It has a little bit of reddish to it. But I've got this reddish brown. I'll use that. Oh, definitely brown, yellow. And I might even use some black for the shadows. So I think for me, step one is just finding what are all the possible colors I could use. Me personally, I don't see the bright red, the orange, or these bright other colors working. So move that aside and try to draw a little bit of this pear here. So again, I like to start lightly, start with a light color. And I might even just use this yellow just to find out where this pear lives, just to get the basics down. And I know you can't see this very well yet, and that's okay. But starting with a light color is nice because you can erase it. All right, so there's my basic pear shape. There's not a whole lot of real yellow things, but in this section here, it's a little bit lighter. I can put some yellows in there or in there. All right, I think I'm gonna use this greenish color here. Use some of that. I see quite a bit of that, but it's not this full bright green like you might use for a leaf. It's kind of subtle. So I'll use some greens in here. I'll give this an overall, just a light green. So I'm building this up slowly in layers. Do it a little more up here. There we go. It definitely has some browns in there. Well, lots of browns. You've got big brown areas like this big gash right there. It's kind of gross. And of course, the stem is fairly brown, but I think I'll get in there with a little bit of other colors too, like this kind of warm, almost reddish color, and use a little black on that. So it's about layering, and look how hard I'm pressing. I'm really trying to burnish that color down into there. But let's get back to this part here. I'll need a little more brown, and I'm gonna layer some of that in there. So you don't have the right color. Now, if I had all 500 of my colored pencils, sure, I could probably find the right color. But I'm gonna have to, since I've only got 12, really try to layer these. So I'm kind of looking back and forth. I'm looking at the apple, or the apple, I'm still learning my fruits. I'm looking at the pear, and I'm really trying to capture what I see. This is especially hard for me because I'm not looking at the pear. I'm looking at my television screen to see from the view that you guys can see it at. So that's a little bit more of a struggle. So I'm just going to work on this one top section here. Add a little bit more. And you can always come back with different colors. Like I've got a darker green here. I see a little bit of that coming through here. So I'm just going to keep layering and layering. Maybe coming back with a little more of this green. Let's put some of that in there. A little more brown. So lots of different colors. And before long, it'll start to look just like that pear. I'm going to start to burnish some of this down with my yellow. Make some of those colors more solid. Let's just try to do a little more work here. A little bruise there. A couple more imperfections. So again, I'm struggling a little bit because I don't generally use Crayola colored pencils. And if I'm struggling, you're probably saying, well, I'm going to be struggling then. And that's okay. These aren't going to match up perfectly. I won't be able to make the exact colors I'm looking for. I've got like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, got at least 4 different colors here trying to make the right color, but I don't have the right color. So I'm very, very limited in what I can do. But we're just trying to get as close as we can. Trying to work as close as we can to like how a painter would work. Let's do it here more. Put some really dark blacks in here. That I can bring it to life. Let's make that a little bit darker. These imperfections. So again, I don't want to sit here for too long, but I do know that this is starting to look pretty darn good. I'm getting a lot of different colors in there, and that's what I'm after. So this will take you some time, but especially if you're really looking and trying to make it look like that gross guy there. But again, for 50 points, I need to see your pear or your apple. Ugh, that's gross. From at least 2 different views. I need to see highlights, and I need to see cast shadows, and I need to see all the little imperfections of your fruit or veggie. So good luck. Let me know if you need help. Happy drawing.